right, what up, though? Welcome to Free Game Podcast. It's been a minute. As you see, I don't have no guests today because I wanted to have a real conversation. So let's get started. I kind of want to talk about my story a little bit and how I was able to go from, where I was at in Detroit to generating 6-7 figures for a lot of small local businesses and for myself. So here, let's start from the top, right? I used to only believe that, it's sad to say this, I used to only believe that basketball was my only way to make 6 figures legally. As crazy as that is to say in 2024, considering the abundance of opportunity that there is to make money and damn near anything, and the information that's available to us literally at scale. I literally used to only believe that I could obtain 6 figures a year legally by being a professional basketball player overseas. And it's sad because a lot of people from where I'm from, I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally. My mom did end up coming up on some money and getting a house out in Brighton later on in life when I was like around 13, 14 or so. And I stayed out in that community for a few years until I got in trouble and I had to go back to Detroit and finish out high school and figure out my life from there. And all of us growing up, the only way majority of us believed that we would make 6 figures, even 7 figures legally was through sports. As sad as that is to say. I mean, we grew up in a Detroit where they weren't hiring young black men in 2010 and 2011, my senior year in high school, my junior and senior year in high school. And the only way people really got out the neighborhood was literally through either scholarships or they had a hustle. I mean, they sold drugs, they scammed, or they robbed, and they came up like that, and that's just what it was. I mean, even the most nicest, most humblest guys that I know ended up that way. So for me, it was always about the money. Like, I always wanted to figure out how to make 6 figures legally. And, I wanted to talk about that portion of my life because a lot of my closest friends, are in that community still. Like, they're in that basketball world in Detroit. And they've had to pivot out of there and, they literally believe the same thing. They thought that their only way to make 6 figures legally was through playing sports. Now, granted, I came from a pretty badass basketball background. When I was at Brighton, I mean, we end up winning like 21 or 22 games or something, like close to 20 games that year. It's only, I think we went like 18-2. We only lost like 2 games that entire season. Right. We won championships. We cut down nets. I was the only black kid on the team, but it was the baddest group of white boys I ever played with. All of them was tough as hell. A lot of guys at Southeastern to talk shit like they'd have blew us out by 30, but I don't think so at all. We had really good guards. We had good bigs. We had guys that can play. We had guys that wasn't scared to play defense. So, and it was crazy going back to Detroit as a senior in high school. After being in a white community for like 2-3 years. That school was the top school in the state at that time, 24th in the country. I played with some dogs there. My center went to Iowa State, Percy Gibson, 6'10" center, lefty. I had a really good point guard. He was a 6'6" point guard, Brandon Kearney. He played with Draymond Green at Michigan State. Played at Michigan State for like 2 years. Won Mr. PSL. These guys being so successful was the reason I was able to get an opportunity to get out of the neighborhood with basketball. You know, like we had schools coming from every single which way throughout the country to come to that little rinky dink gym in the ghetto, you know, to recruit people, even in the off season, you know. And coming out of high school, I was dealing with a lot of legal trouble, you know. I mean, I was fighting multiple felonies. I beat them, but, you know, it was a hard time for me. I was on felony probation for 3-4 years. And again, this is a Detroit where, again, they're not hiring young black men because of whatever their stigma is against us. So, I mean, like whether they thought we were a threat or whatever the case may be, they weren't hiring us. So the only way for us to get out of the neighborhood was to either get a scholarship or you hustled out. It was no other way. Entrepreneurship kind of was the only way, for real, but we didn't know that. You know, the money that we was making doing the things that we was doing kind of taught us the fundamentals of business, but we didn't realize that. But that's not the direction where I want to go with this.